So how do you go about implementing communism worldwide, or better stated, how do you go about getting everyone to buy into these communistic ideas and silently convert everyone over to a communistic agenda?
They can sell the idea as a great step toward brotherhood and a unified globe and so forth. They use all of these things to make it sound good. But when you start examining the actual policies that they're instituting, it's not so hot.
You use two things: governments, that's your inroads, and collectivism, that's your ideology. So collectivism, will start there. Collectivism, roughly defined, is this idea that government is the solution for most, if not all, of man's problems.
They have one and only one solution for all problems: more government, and then more and more until it's total government. And forgive me for saying it one more time: total government is communism.
You want to improve society in a certain way. The solution should be through, government action, through coercion, using some sort of law to bring about change. If necessary, in the collectivist thinking, individuals or minority groups can be sacrificed for the greater good.
Collectivism, as I've said several times, and that means it's all-powerful government.
The state is preeminent, the greater good being for the greater good of the state, the organ as a whole, and not any one individual.
And then there was the second branch that we opened with originally, Fabianism.
Well, this is the branch of communism that is perhaps the least known in the Western world. And yet it is the most important to us in the Western world because we live in it.
Fabianism comes from the Fabian Society, formed in 1884, another collectivist movement named after a Roman general, Quintius Fabius. He's famous for wearing out his enemies through delay tactics.
This dragging it out sounds like Congress.
It is Congress. This is what's been going on in England and in France and in Germany and in the United States. The move toward what they called socialism or communism, they said, would be gradual in such a way that there'd be no violent revolution, but
Right.
at the end of the line, they would have it, and nobody could say it happened on such and such a date.
And so the Fabians believed in bringing about this new world order based on this collectivist model, but not like the Leninists thought, right? We don't want to use force and violence and bloodshed like Lenin. Wear your enemy down, break their will to resist by slowly infiltrating institutions. Put your people in government agencies. You insert your people into their schools. You insert your people into their charitable organizations. So Lenin and the Leninists, they took a different approach. Lenin looked at the theories of Karl Marx and said, let's convert this into a fighting force. So Marx wrote, Das Kapital and the Communist Manifesto, and had a whole bunch of slogans. Workers of the world unite, throw off the chains of your capitalist oppressors, unite against war and racism, to each according to his need, and recapture control over the means of production and all that stuff, right? So the Leninists, they liked that stuff. And so, but they believed not only in the writings of Karl Marx, but also in, Lenin. And so Lenin was more of an operational, boots on the ground type guy. So he wanted, he goes, no, we're not gonna just philosophize about this all day long. We're going to put action to this. So we need organization, we need structure, discipline, communication, training. We need leadership. We need to create a fighting force, somebody that actually can do something. Because again, books and pithy quotes aren't going to do it. That's not going to cut it when it comes to revolution. So the Marxists are the theoreticians, and the Leninists are more of the soldiers, the boots on the ground, the guys that make it happen in various revolutionary fronts. So through this idea of collectivism, where the state is preeminent, we get worldwide communism, which is, Marx's utopia. It's his end game. Through the vehicle of socialism.
Well, what is socialism? All right, let's define it. According to the dictionary, socialism is a political concept based upon the principle of government ownership and control of property, the means of production, and the avenues of commerce.
Some people call it state capitalism, socialism, centralized planning, whatever. It doesn't really matter what kind of name you attach to the system. Basically, if you're a religious person, it's a devilish, satanistic system which appeals only to the most primitive, negative side of human nature. The basis of that system is denial of private property, human dignity, and personal responsibility, is to destroy the civilization on which the affluence and freedom based, and replace it with a system of total control over life of human beings, the system of total exploitation. That's the ultimate purpose.
What has all this to do with the communist revolution in America? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has everything to do with it, because the building of socialism is the communist revolution in America.
According to a new survey, 70% of American millennials say they'll likely vote socialist, and 1 in 3 of them view communism favorably.
Specifically, this idea of social justice movements.
No matter what national problems we may face, the communists seize upon these as excuses to build socialism.
So, for the sole purpose of passing laws that don't benefit any of these people.
They have one and only one solution for all problems: more government, and then more and more until it's total government.
But rather simply there to increase the government's control, thus increasing the round table group's control and the outer rings of power.
The quiet conversion of our government into a communist regime, but under the banner of socialism.
Well, how do they define it?
The new program of the Communist Party on this subject has this to say: the term socialism describes but the first stage of a new society that in its full development is called communism. Socialism is a transitional stage.
Socialism is a transitional state. They know that this means control over all people. For if someone controls all property and all means of production and all avenues of commerce, then it controls all people in any real sense of the word control. If people are dependent upon the state or any single institution for all their food and their clothing and their shelter and their Medicare and their security and their well-being and anything else, we are more under control by that institution more than if anybody was standing over us with a gun to our head.